Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Be the Right Club Today podcast. Our next guest on the podcast is one of the best golfers this game's ever known. 39 PGA Tour wins, 8 major championships, including 5 British Opens. He was the PGA Tour Player of the Year 6 times. If there was an award to be won in golf, this man won it. Mr. Tom Watson. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris.
Tom,
Hello, Hal.
how are you, buddy? It's been a long time.
It has.
Yeah,
You got a little bit of a thing right here working, don't you?
yeah. Just do something different. Why not?
Well, everybody's wearing them.
Yeah. Well, I joined the crowd. What can I say?
Where are the tattoos? We got to have the tattoos.
That's one thing I don't have, Tom.
I haven't gone that route yet, but never say never.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I am ever going to have a tattoo. But on to something more important. How's the horses?
Well, the horses are good. I showed in the Abilene Spectacular this last weekend. I had 4 horses to show, but I got one to the finals and finished 4th in the 5-6-year-old intermediate amateur. Won $2,000.
There you go. You just keep passing me on up,
That's right. You're my eat my dust, Hal.
I've been eating your dust for a long time, Tom.
No, well, you haven't been on the back of a horse, I'm sure, for a long time.
Yeah, it's been 15 years at least. But so I want to.
How real quick? Don't our listeners need? Real quick, sorry, how to interrupt you. Don't our listeners need to understand a little bit about the greatness we're amongst right now? Aren't you guys the 2 leading money winners in quarter horse golfer championships, or what's the title there?
Well, thanks for setting this up. Yeah. There's an organization for our listeners called the National Cutting Horse Association, and Hal back in the 90s, I believe he did a lot of riding back then, and I started riding about 5.5 years ago because my career in golf was ending, and I wanted to do something completely different. And I had been around my wife for years, who was very successful. He was a very successful cutter. And I finally, I went to one of her shows and said, I'm tired of sitting on my butt watching. I've got to do this. And fortunately, I have a good operation here in Kansas and a great horseman to teach me. And that's what I had to learn first. And as Hal knows, you have to learn horsemanship and then cutting. And that's how I started. And now 5.5 years later, I spent a lot more money than I've won. I can tell you that, Chris, and I know that.
Well, when Tom texted me and told me that he had passed me, I said, "So how much money did it cost you to pass me?" Because it happens to be one of the most expensive things you can do. And, of course, Tom had the career that allows him to enjoy that. And, maybe at the core of you, Tom, like me, I always wanted to be a cowboy. I was a little boy, growing up, wanted horses, and I kind of lived out a dream riding those horses for a while.
Well, I was, as a kid, Roy Rogers and the Lone Ranger and things like that. But I didn't really want to become really a horseman until I started watching Hillary, my wife, ride and doing so well. And I finally said, there's a lot to this thing and I'd like to learn. And as I said, my career was about ended, and I had about ended, and I wanted to do something else in my life before I go to the final hole in the sky up there.
Well, on another subject here, let's get on golf. I've said to many kids that come in here, I believe the greatest player for the longest period of time is Tom Watson. I've admired you for a long, long time, Tom. You had the ability to know where your club face was in your golf swing as well as anybody in the world, and played it at a really high level late in life. So
well,
have you on the podcast.
Well, thanks. I would disagree with you as far as the greatness is concerned. I couldn't carry Byron Nelson's shoes. I mean, I know he had a short career, but watching Byron so closely as I did for many years, watching that golf swing and the way he controlled the club face, Hal. I mean, his club face was square to impact that long in his golf swing. And, he could, his pull hook just barely went a little bit left. His slice just went a little bit right. He was as straight a hitter as the golf ball as there ever was. And then you look at the long career of Jack Nicklaus. You look at the long career, the long career of Tiger Woods. He won the Masters a couple of years ago before he got in the accident. I agree with the length of the career is a determining factor on greatness, I think. But you certainly have to look at players like Johnny Miller, who really, really played well for a short period of time. I can tell you how I don't think I ever saw anybody hit the ball straight or as close to the hole as Johnny Miller back in the 70s when I played with him.
Well, none of those guys that you mentioned almost won the British Open at 60 years old. So,
yeah, that's an outlier. I did one thing. I did scare those kids when I was 59 years old. They looked up at that big yellow scoreboard up there, and they saw that name Watson, and then they looked closely and said, "Hey, that's not a B up there."
So Tom, I have to ask about that since you brought it up. Was that shot on 18 one of the best iron? Did you just pure that iron shot?
I did. I hit it the way I wanted to, without a question. I hit it right in the middle of the club face, and there was a gust of wind at my back that hit. It was a downwind shot, but there was an extra gust of wind that hit, and I think that probably made the ball go over the green, because I landed the ball almost exactly where I wanted to land it on the green, and under normal circumstances it wouldn't have gone over, but it might have hit that little down slope on the very front left of the 18th green at Turnberry. I don't know, but it might have done that. But anyway, it is what it is.
Well, so tell us about Alfie.
Well, Alfie Files was a caddy that I was hooked up with in 1975 when I went to my first Open Championship at Carnoustie. He had caddied for Gary Player and won with Gary Player at Carnoustie a few years earlier. And Gary had brought over Rabbit, this caddy from America, to caddy for him. And Alfie, through IMG, the Mark McCormick operation, they got me a caddy, and it was Alfie Files. And he was a great old Cockney guy from down in Southport, near Birkdale, on the west coast of England there. He smoked his unfiltered cigarettes and loved his famous grouse, and he wore his tam, and he was quite the character. He had a brother, Albert, who was also a character, and then both of them. When you go over to play golf in the UK, I can strongly suggest get a caddy. And these caddies over there are characters. They have stories to tell. They'll bet on you against people you're playing against or playing with. They have a tremendous amount of course knowledge to help you out on those links golf courses, because links golf is a lot different than American golf. In American golf, you take your rangefinder, you look at the yardage, you kind of calculate where you want to land the ball. The ball's going to land there and go your distance. Links golf, you really don't know unless you've played a lot of links golf to know how far the ball is going to roll or what the ball is going to do going into a green or off the tee. The caddy's knowledge there is paramount. You've got to rely on your caddy to help you.
So preparing for British Open, you won so many of them. You had so much success over there. Did you prepare any differently?
I did. And I did it strictly out of the reasons of trying to get used to the time difference, jet lag. I mean, I knew that after traveling to Japan, that jet lag just killed me. And I said, when I went over to my first Open Championship at Carnoustie, I went over there and arrived on Friday before the championship to get my body adjusted to the time change. And obviously, when you have over there 6 hours earlier than Kansas City, and that's if I had a 7 o'clock tee time, that would put me at 1 o'clock in the morning, and my body's not awake at 1 o'clock in the morning unless I have adjusted to it. And I knew that, and that's what I did. But part of the, but I also added, later on, I added playing golf on a lot of links golf courses over there that I always wanted to play. Ballybunion was a favorite golf course of mine. I show up over there on the West Coast, County Kerry, Ireland, and I play Ballybunion for a couple of days, and going up to Royal Dornoch, playing Royal Dornoch, going to play the links courses up the coast, up the east coast of Scotland. That got you understanding the turf. The turf is different over there than it is here. It's sandy. It's hard and firm, sandy, tight lies, and you basically you had to adjust to the striking of the ball there a little differently than you did in America and the lusher lies we found in America. Although American golf courses are now set up, and I'm sure you would agree, Hal, that the fairways have been cut so tight now they mimic those fairways on the links courses, and I think that's done a disservice to the game of golf and how tight and how short the grass is in the fairway. Because a lot of players, a lot of amateur players can't hit it off a tight lie. They just can't do it.
A lot of older guys can't either.
I can't. Hey,
look at it.
I hit the ball thin all the time. I hit it on the one line low all the time, or 2 lines low. My club face. Are you finding that too?
Oh, am I finding that? My arms are getting shorter.
Yeah, I can't hit it. Can't take a divot. I'm hitting it thin. Man, the game is a lot tougher now than it used to be. I can tell you.
Tom, how did you have so much success in the wind over there? What were some of your keys to playing in the wind?
Well, I never considered myself a low ball hitter ever. I hit the ball, and hell no, I hit the ball straight up in the air. But the one thing I did do, I hit the ball really solidly. And whenever you hit the ball solidly, when you're going up through the air or into a wind or something like that, you can get the right distance. And if you boil down to golf in a nutshell, it's hitting the ball the proper distance. I don't care whether it's a 20-foot putt. You have to hit the right distance with a break, and then play the break for that 20-foot putt. Or you have to, when you're going into a downwind hole on a links golf course, and you have to land the ball 70 or 80 yards short of the green to have the ball end up on the green. You have to judge and use your feel to feel the distance to get the right distance for the shot. That's the key element, I think, in links golf, and it's the biggest factor and biggest difference in links golf versus the softer conditions we play here in America.
Well, you disagreed with me on who you being one of the greatest players of all time later into your career, but you had to be one of the best bad weather players that there was. And talk about the mindset. So many people, they wake up and they see the weather bad. They're beat before they even go out there.
You got that right.
You obviously didn't have that problem. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I always felt that I had an advantage over the players who grew up in Florida and California and your state of Texas, where they never really had to practice in bad weather. I grew up in Kansas City, I always decided I wanted to live here. I didn't want to leave my family and friends. People always ask me, why didn't you move? I said, I didn't want to move away from my family and friends. So that precluded me. When I had to practice, I had to practice in bad weather. In fact, yesterday I was practicing here, getting ready for the Mitsubishi Electric over in Hawaii. at my farm, and the ground, I couldn't get the tee in the ground. It's frozen. And yeah, you had to practice in bad weather. So, and plus I was a hunter. My dad taught me to love to hunt when I was a youngster, and taught me how to dress for it. And so I knew how to dress for cold weather and was prepared for it. And as you say, a lot of the players, when that weather turned bad, they didn't want to be out there.
I grew up in the Southwest Kansas area, Tom, and it blows all the time, 40, 50.
Where there, Chris?
Just south of Liberal.
Uh-huh.
So kind of
flat out there.
Oklahoma Panhandle. Yeah, I played a lot of little AJGAs and junior golf tournaments in Kansas City, and that was one of the questions. Huh?
You played Southwind out there, didn't you?
Oh yeah, Southwind, Buffalo Dunes, Southwest Kansas Pro-Am, all those courses.
Yeah.
Sure.
Those are good. Those are good golf courses.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you was, do you think living in Kansas City help prepare you for British Open type weather? It's kind of what Hal asked about bad weather, but I keep going back to the wind because, it blows hard in Kansas City, and obviously to win 5 British Opens, you had to handle the wind. And that was one thing, like I worked with a guy, you probably maybe remember the name, Jim Woodward. He played on tour for a long time. He was younger. Yeah. He'd always tell me, Chase, you have to hit it solid in the wind first. You have to hit it solid. And one thing that Hal and we talk about a lot with our players is it's okay to go a little slower. It's okay to take more club and take some off of it and just make sure you hit it solid, take some spin off and flight it a little bit differently. Right. And so that was what I was just curious about. If you think that your where you grew up enabled you to be more prepared to handle everything that came with the British Open.
Well, I grew up as a golfer with my dad. I never played golf from the 1st of September until about the 1st of April. I played football and basketball, and I continued that into college. My first couple of years at Stanford, I just didn't play. But those times that I did play, when the bug really got me around Masters time in April, and then through the summer, I played a lot of golf. I learned a lot. But the thing is about the wind, I had never really considered myself a low ball hitter. So, and people say, well, you got to hit the ball low into the wind, and it does help. Only later in my life, in '94, when I changed my swing, could I hit the ball low with accuracy and control. Before, I always kind of hung back, and I hit the ball off the right field, trying to hit the ball low, and that was. So I just said, I'm going to hit the ball through the air, hit it solid, and judge how far that ball is going to go into the wind or the crosswind. Most people do not play. Most people do not ever play enough wind, as they say. They don't play enough, for the effects of the wind. And when you have a 10-mile-an-hour wind, that affects the ball a lot. And you add another 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, and now you're really, you really have to judge. You have to do a lot of judgment there. The curve of the ball, how far is the ball is going to go into the wind, and conversely downwind. So no, playing the wind, it gets back to feel and judgment of your distance control. How far do you get? It doesn't matter whether it's up in the air or down low. It's all about distance control, and obviously hitting the ball a little bit lower, getting the ball on the ground. When the ball's on the ground, the wind's not going to affect it as much. So I know Hal was a great low ball hitter, and he played great in bad conditions, in the windy conditions. He was always there. So. There's not one way to play this game, as I've figured out over these years, but wind is just one thing. Swing with ease into the breeze, as my old teacher Stan Thirst told me. Swing with ease into the breeze, just like you say. Take some of the spin off of it. Take more club. I have a friend here that plays golf, and I said, TA, when you're playing a shot into the wind, it's never a 1-club wind. It's a 2-club or a 3-club win, and you do that. Have some fun with it. Hit 3 clubs longer than the yardage says you should hit it. 3 clubs longer, and see what happens. And he came back to me and said, Tom, you're right. I mean, it's unbelievable. I can get the ball the right distance now.
Amen.
Most people out there don't want to hit enough club, period. Even if they were playing in dome, they all believe they hit it further than they really do. You know, one of the things in here teaching, we use TrackMan and things like that. And we always ask everybody how far they hit it. They always give us a total yardage, not carry yardage. You never knew how far you hit it totally other than with a driver. You know, someone said, well, Tom, how far do you hit a total 7-iron? Well, from week to week, that changed. Sometimes it's backing up. So,
well, you know, you hit the nail on the head, Hal. I ask amateurs all the time, how far do you hit a 7-iron in the air? And I say in the air is a throwaway line.
Right.
And then they say, well, I hit it about 160. I said, in the air? No. I hit it about 150. I say about doesn't get it. I said, when you're on the tour, these players on the tour can hit the ball plus or minus 2 yards in the air with every club in the bag. They know how far they can hit it in the air. And it's pretty easy to learn that with your rangefinders. It really is. And of course, if you have a TrackMan, it's fine. But with a rangefinder, and there's a target flag out there, and you can judge where that ball lands exactly. Hit that target flag like that. It says 134 yards, and then take your 8-iron and hit the ball. And if it lands at that 134 yards, that's when you hit a good shot. You may have to take 10 swings to hit a good 8-iron, but hit that shot, that 134 yard shot with that 8-iron, and well, it consistently goes longer than it. So I hit it longer than that. Also, when you're on the golf course and you're playing, you make ball marks on the green, right? Yeah, everybody makes a ball mark on the green. Fix it, but walk to the hole. You've shot the distance to the flag. Go to your ball mark, fix it, and then walk from your ball mark to the hole to see how far you carried that ball, because you know how far the hole it is, but you don't know how far you carried the ball. And I do that consistently all the time still. I want to know, because I'm hitting the ball shorter and shorter. I want to know how far I can hit a good, a perfect wedge or a perfect 9-iron under under the conditions. And I want to know how far I landed the ball. So the next time I have to carry over a bunker 123 yards, I know, I have to hit a perfect wedge to hit the ball 123 yards with no wind on a level lie. And so, maybe I'm not going to hit that wedge. I'm going to hit that 9-iron.
Well, there you have it, folks. One of the greatest players of all time telling you that it still matters how he hits the golf ball. He's still wanting to score. Do you think that'll ever stop, Tom?
Well, I'm going to play in the Mitsubishi Electric. That's the only tour term I'm going to play in. The first term of the year over at Hawaii in Hawaii. I'm going to play that next week. And then I'm going to play in the Watson Challenge. It's a tournament I started here 13 years ago here in Kansas City. It gets together the best amateurs and pros in Kansas City. When we play a 48-man field, and we play we see who's the best player in Kansas City. We've done that for years. I'll play in that tournament too. Last time I played in that tour, I played with a guy named Andy Spencer. He's a pro now on the tour. He outdrove me 100 yards on the second hole. 100 yards, not 50, not 70, 100 yards. I paced it.
Well, I tell you what, Tom, I'm getting shorter. We're at our age. Our numbers are going up with our age and coming down with our yardage. And I think it's something we're just going to have to live with.
Well, I did shoot. I played in an event for MasterCard at Las Colinas, where we played the Byron Nelson, right? Played there this last week. It was 37 degrees and the wind was blowing 20 miles an hour. And I shot 68 from the white tees. All right, from the white tees. But I have to say, it was like the old Watson 68s. I scrambled and got the ball up from everywhere, up and down from everywhere. Made one 20-footer for birdie and another short one for birdie, and ended up shooting 68. It was typical Watson. I was kind of proud of that round.
You should.
So you should be, but it still matters, doesn't it, Tom?
It does matter. Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, it does. I hardly play anymore. I don't play very much at all. But, when I go out, I still want to hit a few shots like I used to hit somehow,
Yeah.
So let's get back on Byron Nelson for a minute. I worked with Byron Nelson a little bit too whenever I was in college. He was really close friends with a guy named Mr. Shift, Brighton Shift in Dallas. My dad did business with Mr. Shift, and he knew Mr. Nelson real well. So Mr. Nelson started asking me to come over to Preston Trails, and we did. And the human side of Byron Nelson, you talk about what a great player he was, but I'm gonna share a little story here about what a man he was, and then I want you to do the same thing, because this amazed me, as a matter of fact. My first year on tour was 1982, and I ended up finishing 11th on the money list and made $247,000. And Mr. Nelson called me on the phone and said, "Hal, I want you to come over. I want to watch you hit a few balls over here." This is after the year was over with. So I would go over and he'd watch me hit balls for 30 or 40 minutes, and he'd make a suggestion or two, and then we'd go in and have lunch. We spent a lot more time over lunch than we ever did on the driving range. And we got inside, we shared a couple of stories there real quick, and I look over there and he's kind of got teary eyes, and there's tears running down his cheek. And I said, "Mr. Nelson," I said, "what's wrong?" And he said, "Nothing, Hal." He said, "These are tears of joy." He said, "You just won more in your rookie year than I won in my entire lifetime." And he said, "I think I had a little bit to do with your career so far, and I had a little bit to do with the PGA Tour. So I'm just happy."
Yeah, that sounds like Byron. I spent hours and days and nights with him at his ranch in Roanoke, Texas, especially when his first wife, Louise, had a terrible stroke, totally incapacitated her. And Byron stayed by her side for 2 years. I mean, rarely left her side, took care of her. And I went down to spend time with him during this difficult episode in his life. And as you said, the time spent, listening to him talk about the life that he lived, the life that his fellow competitors lived and other people lived, his devotion to God, to his devotion to his wife Louise, to his way of playing the game. Byron was a ham. Whether you knew it or not, he was a ham on the golf course. He loved to show off. He loved to show off his skills. In fact, he told me that when he played exhibitions, he would go to these golf courses, and he said, "What's the course record?" And they would tell him the course record 62 or 63. And he said, who holds the course record here? And he said, "Well, the pro here, the club owns the course record." And he said he never, ever tried to break the course record when the pro owned the course record. He didn't want to do that. That was typical Byron. He also told me about 1945, the year when he won 18 tournaments, 11 tournaments in a row, starting with the Miami 4-ball and ending at the Canadian Open. He said the next tournament, I can't remember which tournament it was, he said it was a huge relief that he didn't win it. He had the pressure of winning every week. The streak was really getting to him, and he was very happy that he didn't win. But then, of course, the following week he won again. He finished. I think in that year, 1945, he finished third 24 times out of the 30 tournaments he played in. Third or better, something like that. He never finished out of the top 10. It was just an amazing year. And just to end this about Byron. Byron played an exhibition in Ohio one time, and Jack Nicklaus was there as a kid. Jack said he watched Byron hit during the clinic. He watched Byron hit balls during the clinic, and he made this comment. He said, "I've never seen a golfer hit the ball as pure or as straight as Byron Nelson in my career." It includes Hogan, Snead, Trevino, Johnny Miller. He just said, Nelson was the best.
Well, he was one of the finest men I knew too. So that's why I wanted to bring that story up. I said to him one time what his goals in life were. And he told me, he said, "Hal, I want to be the best man I can be, the best husband I can be, the best Christian I can be, and the best golfer I can be. I want to be balanced."
That order. In that
order, yes. And I'm telling you, he really was a balanced human being.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to tell you, we're really telling everybody else out there.
Well, I tell you, when Byron died, I heard it. I can't remember exactly how I heard it. I called up Peggy, who he had remarried, Peggy, and they were madly in love. And I called up Peggy, and she said, he was sitting on the swing, the porch of his house in Roanoke, and I drove in there, and he was gone. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Peggy." I say, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. He's in the exact place he wants to be right now. That's where don't feel happy for him. Feel happy that he is in the place that he wanted to be.
That's a great story right there. So another person that was a big part of your life, Bruce Edwards. Great guy. Loved Bruce. He was always full of life.
Yeah.
Talk about Bruce a little bit for those that don't know Bruce.
Well, Bruce Edwards became my caddy in 1973 in St. Louis. Just gotten married, and I was carrying my bag. I drove into the parking lot at the golf course there in St. Louis, and I took my McGregor bag out. I had it over my shoulder, and I didn't have a caddy, and I was walking through the parking lot there. It was a hot day, about 98 degrees. Saw a bunch of caddies off to the right here, sitting down in the shade. Back in those days, the caddies showed up on Mondays, and they would wait, and somebody would drive in like me, and they'd come over and ask me if they could caddy for me for that week. That's how they got their job. They didn't have professional caddies as such back then. You basically picked up a caddy for a week or two, and then you picked up another caddy. And that, in 1973, I didn't have much of a career going, but I was doing okay occasionally. And I'm walking up there to go register with my McGregor bag over my shoulder, and here comes Bruce up on my right side. I said, Tom, I was wondering, could I caddy for you? And I put the bag down, and I said, well, let's talk about this. And I asked him where he's from, who he caddied for before in the tour, he seemed like a good kid, and I said, sure, we'll give it a shot. Well, that tournament, I finished sixth in that tournament. Gene Littler came back from cancer for a year off and cancer in the shoulder, and won the tournament. And Bruce, after it was all over, he was really excited because, I paid him $15 a day and 3%. That was the going rate for paying your caddies back then. And he got a bunch of money in his pocket. 3% is $6,000. That was a lot of money for those kids. And he said, Tom, could I caddy for you for the rest of the year? I said, now hold on here. Hold on. I'll tell you what. I'll give you a shot next week, and we'll see where it goes. Okay. Well, that lasted 33 years.
33.
Yeah. He had, he caddied for me in the early part of my senior tour career. And I'll never forget the morning of the final round at Gaillardia in the Tour Championship. I come out there, it's cold. I mean, it's one of those Watson days. It was 43 degrees and blowing about 20. and it was overcast. It was really cold. And he comes up to him and he shows me his hand like this. And he said, "Look at this, Tom." And there was no flesh inside that juncture right there. It was just a pocket. Well, I said, "What's this, Tom?" I said, and I had been on him to go see a doctor for a full physical for a long time because he's a smoker and he had congestion all the time. And I said, "You've got to go see, you got to get a complete physical." Well, I won the tournament. I didn't hear from him until Marcia, his girlfriend, called me up and said, "Tom, he can't breathe. He's coughing so badly." I said, "All right, enough is enough." So I called up my friends at the Mayo Clinic up in Rochester. And I said, "Can you get Bruce in there?" And said, "Yeah. Have him arrive tomorrow, and we'll get him in for a complete physical." Well, I was, about 3 days later, got a call here. I was eating dinner with Hillary and her kids, and I get a call from Marcia, and it was Marcia on the phone and said, "Tom, I've got terrible news." And I had an inkling what it might be. And I said, "What's that, Marcia?" And I said, "Well, Bruce has ALS. Here, he wants to talk to you." So I pick up, he gets on the phone. He said, "Well, I just made a quad." That's typical Bruce. He just made a quadruple bogey. And I said, "Yeah, we'll beat this. We'll find a cure. We'll find something for it." And I mean, we just I pulled out all the stops of my contacts and all the information I could glean, and Paige, Hillary's daughter, was doing the same thing. We tried everything from cobra venom to massive doses of vitamins to you're thinking it might be Lyme's disease to all sorts of things, but alas, it was ALS, and it killed him. And typical Bruce, he loved the Masters with a passion. That was his favorite tournament. He couldn't wait to caddy at Augusta. And I knew he was in bad shape. 3 weeks before Augusta, I went and saw him with Billy Leahy, another caddy who was on the tours, no longer caddying, but went and saw him, and he was in bad shape, and but still had that great sense of Bruce Edwards humor. And at Augusta, that Thursday morning, it was a drizzly, cool, overcast morning. Hillary, my wife, came up to me and she said, "Bruce is gone." And I said, "Well, that's typical." Yeah. He loved the Masters. He's just going to pull the plug at the Masters.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious how much Bruce meant to you. And as we get older, those loved ones mean a lot, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do. There's, that's what life's about, relationships. Hal, you know that. It's about relationships, and you hope that over the period of your life, you can have a good friend or 2 good friends or 3 good friends. That's all that's needed. Just right. Somebody that you love and trust and rely on and has your back, whatever you do. And that's what we human beings we rely upon in life as far as a human aspect of it. And then there's the God, there's our higher power, the religious aspect of it, that knowing that we can't act like God. We can't believe that we're God. That there is only a God that is there, that that really has the power over our lives, and we have to understand that.
Well, one thing you mentioned there that I want to bring out is all the great players that ever played the tour. It looks serious, but you talked about the humor that Bruce had, and Freddie caddied for me for years, and Freddie was very humorous.
Mhm.
And you look back at all of the great players, they had caddies that were humorous, really. You know, I mean, they were characters. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, they had to be humorous to carry to put up with our bullshit. I mean, yeah. I mean, we get case in point, when I was playing in the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach in '82, I just bogeyed the 16th hole to go in a tie with Jack, and then I hit a 2-iron, a pull hook to 2-iron. Didn't pull a hook, but I pulled it in the just left of the green in the deep stuff, just in a bad situation. I short sided myself on the downslope. I knew I was toast. I'm walking off the tee there, and I muttered to myself, and Bruce could hear it. I said, "Well, that's dead." And he just said, "No, it isn't. Let's go get it up and down." You say, they had to be, they had to be humorous, but they also had to be part psychologists, and they had to be, and Bruce's, one of his greatest attributes was that the life was, was a glass half full, never half empty. There was always a chance. When I made a double bogey, he said, "Come on, let's get a little run going." He said, "When I'm playing crappy, I warm up just crappy, and I mutter, I say, well, this is going to be a really good day." He just says, "Find a way, just find a way to get it done today, and we'll sort out the swing. You'll sort out the swing later." And so the caddies were there to support us. They had our back, and yeah, they were humorous. they were a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah, they were. And I think, golf has a tendency to put us in a bad mood from time to time when you're really eating at it. and good caddies realized that. They accepted you were going to go there, and their job was to pull you back into being hopeful and optimistic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like any good friend would. They know that you're going to be on your pity pot. When things are going badly, and just the wheels are falling off. They're there to not to give up on you. They're there to support you. Hey, like Bruce said, find a way. Just find a way.
That's a perfect. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but survival. I mean, here we're talking to one of the greatest players of all time, and there were days you went out there where you were just trying to survive, weren't you, Tom?
Well, not survive, just trying to break 80. It's just it was going sideways. I mean, I can tell you the story about the U.S. Open is a prime example. I was playing my worst golf in years going into the U.S. Open 1982 at Pebble. I mean, terrible. It was going left, it was going right, and I didn't know where it's going to go. And normally it went right, but when it's going both left and right, and I mean not just a little bit off, but way off. I said to myself, I got I go to the practice tee, try to find something that's going to work in the swing. Nothing is working. Played 3 practice rounds. I practiced around the greens all the time because I knew that I wasn't going to be hitting very many greens. I better get used to the heavy rough and getting the ball, trying to get the ball up and down some way. And the first round I go out and I'm hitting the ball sideways. But the great thing about it, Hal, as you well know, the U.S. Open, they put those fairways narrow, and they got the really heavy stuff like that. But then they put the gallery ropes out here like this. I was hitting it so crooked, I was hitting it into the gallery. So I had good lies going down grain, they're walking down grain. So, if I was hitting it crappy, I wasn't getting penalized like you. If you missed a fairway, you missed it by 2 yards, you were in the stuff like this. I was in the stuff like that, but it had been bent over like that, and I could hit a shot to the green. So through smoke and mirrors, I was 3 over par coming into the 14th hole, and I birdied 3 out of the last 5, even par for the round. U.S. Open, Pebble Beach. Next day, I was 3 over par going in the last 4 holes. I finished 3 under in the last 4 holes, even par. And I have U.S. Open is the tournament I wanted to win the most. But after even being at at even par and 4 shots behind, I think, Bruce Devlin, I have no chance of winning this golf tournament the way I'm hitting it. I mean, the wheels are going to finally collapse, and I'm going to shoot that 78 or 80 that I've been looking at the first 2 rounds, and somehow got it back to even par. Then I went to the practice tee again, trying to find a swing that worked. You know how it works. You go to the practice, you try things. You're trying something. And I remembered a key from Sam Snead. Sam and I, we had a great relationship. When Sam ever showed up on the tour, which he did quite a bit in the early 70s, I'd stop practicing and I'd go and stand behind Sam to watch him practice. And he would enter conversation. And I got to be conversational with him and asking questions about the swing and things like that. And he said one of the keys to the swing was to keep that left arm tight to the chest on the backswing. Keep it tight to the chest like this. And it's, okay, I got nothing to lose. That just feels like I'm really tight and going to really shorten my swing. Well, all of a sudden that ball started going straight rather than out to right field. Straight, no right field. I practiced for about an hour and a half after the Friday's round. And the last part of the practice session, I turned to Bruce and he said, I always wanted to hear these words out of my boss, Watson. He said, "I've got it." And I told him, "I've got it," And the next day, the first hole at Pebble, the first hole, he got out of bounds to the right over there. And as far as offline, I was hitting it, here's the test right here. And I took that 3-wood back and I just hit it dead straight down the middle of the fairway. And I said, now I have a chance. I have a chance to win the tournament I wanted to win most. And as luck would have it, the last day I made everything and one lucky chip and ended up winning. But it turned around just like that. And that happened a number of times in my career where I was playing really crappy. And I made a change in the golf swing, and all of a sudden it started to flow. And I started hitting the ball the way I needed to hit the ball. And of course, when you do that, now you have the confidence. People say, "Oh, he's lost his confidence in his golf swing." No, you haven't lost your confidence in your golf swing. You lost your golf swing. Your confidence comes from success. It doesn't come from just the confidence in it. No, it comes from success. And I always built my practice on success. If I could go out there and end a practice session where I felt like I was a success in hitting the golf ball any way I wanted to, then that was a great practice session. There are some practice sessions, well, I could hit the cut shot, but not the draw. But okay, but I could rely on that cut shot. And that that's the way I operated. Success was being able to control the ball, left to right, right to left, high and low. And I wasn't very good at hitting it low until later on in my career, but that's how I practiced, and I continued to practice like that. I don't practice like that anymore, but I still practice the shots. I like, and you do too. Hit the ball left to right, hit a draw, hit it up in the air. It still gives me joy to do that. Back in the days when I was really doing it, that gave me the confidence, and I was looking for that confidence.
So Tom, that Saturday of the U.S. Open, when you found a kind of a swing feel it was
a Friday afternoon.
Or Friday. So, okay. So you found it Friday afternoon after your round, but you implemented it the next day on Saturday, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
How, a lot of players talk about they couldn't play with a swing thought or a feel. They were target oriented. Some players say that they're more internal and they can think about different things. How did you walk me through that first tee shot? You pick a target, just kind of the pre-shot routine of once you're over the ball, was that a constant thought of left arm tight across the chest and just commit to it? Where was your brain at from the time you set the club down to executing the shot?
Well, I usually, my key thoughts are on the backswing. That's my key thought. And that was just the one key thought that I found to be a success the previous afternoon,
Right.
Friday afternoon. And that's the thought I went with. You put all the other factors, distance, where you want to hit the ball, all that, in your brain. But the main thing is to make that swing using that swing thought, and you get good feedback when you do it right, obviously. And that's and you build on that. One swing leads to two, leads to four. And the one thing about this game is don't let a bad swing interfere with what is working. Right? Don't try to, in target shooting is chasing the bullet. When you're trying to shoot a group out there at 200 yards and you've got a less than an inch group out there, and then all of a sudden you have a flyer that goes 2 or 3 inches off the center there. Don't go chasing that by changing your scope. Keep working on and doing what you're trying to do right there, and shoot that group. Same thing in golf. When you have something that has been working for you, you don't discard it just because of one bad shot. The wheels are not falling off because of one bad shot, and that happens to golfers all the time, where they're coming down the wire and they hit a bad shot. Well, now the dam is broken and all this, but that's hard. Sometimes that's human nature to think that, but you have to avoid that at all costs. Say, no, I'm doing it right. I continue to do it right. That was just an outlier right there, that shot.
That's some good stuff right there. You mentioned the pitch shot on 17. Somebody on Twitter asked if that wouldn't have gone in, how far by the hole do you think it would have gone?
It probably would have gone 6 or 8 feet by.
I thought that was an interesting question. I wanted your take on it.
Yeah, it probably, that's probably what it meant. And now I've got to make a putt on those bumpy Poana greens to stay even with Jack.
And then
we'll never know that answer because it didn't go by the hole.
It went in. Right. That's right.
I took dead aim. I tell you that when that chip shot. Yeah, and I related the fact that as I related to you during the practice rounds, I practiced that type of shot all the time in the 3 practice rounds. And how those greens, the way the design of those greens, the bunkers, the sand came out of the bunkers with mounds, and then there was a downslope off there onto the green, and that downslope was covered with deep grass. So I practiced that downslope shot, constantly during the practice round. So it wasn't new to me. It was a shot that I can do this. And fortunately, I had a pretty decent lie, even though it was in the deep grass. It had a pretty decent lie, but it was on the downslope. The ball was below my feet, and I'm looking at it. I've got 15 or 16 feet. That's all I've got to the flag. And I said, I've got to try to hit the flagstick here. And it broke left to right. I knew there was a break in there, so I aimed for it and hit the ball. I couldn't have hit the ball any better, literally, on the club face. Actually, when I put the club back in the bag with Bruce, I glanced at the club face, and right in the middle of the club face, right in the middle was the grass spot. I mean, it wasn't off center at all. It was perfectly dead center in the club face.
So awesome.
That's awesome stuff. Hey, one last question here. Favorite golf course in the United States? What is it?
Well, it's always a go-to question. It's like saying, do you like blondes, redheads, or brunettes? I mean, come on. Someday it's a blonde, some days it's a brunette, some days it's a redhead. But my default answer is Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach is, I've had a lot of history there. But frankly, if you look at the golf course, Yeah, I like the golf course because it doesn't beat you up. It's a great golf course from the standpoint you start off. You have it starts you off kind of with a handshake with the short holes. Starting off all the way through 7. You've got if 2 plays is a par 5, plays par 4 in the U.S. Open, but and 5 the par 3. Those are the two holes that you have to deal with. But you've got 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7. All those 5 holes right there. You can birdie all those holes, but then it happens. The 3 best par 4s in a row in the world start at number 8 in Pebble Beach, 8, 9, and 10.
That's right.
And then you play the back 9 into the wind. And I tell you, that back 9, it still got to me as far as distance control is concerned. I kept on coming up short at 13. I kept on coming up short at 14. 16 was always an enigma. I really couldn't judge 16 going down that hill very well. 17 and 18 are flat, but again, coming into that back 9, playing into the wind, and then a right to left wind at 17, and into the wind at 18. It was all you want.
Yeah, I thought the third shot, at 14 was one of the hardest little shots in golf.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it is. It is. Even though they've expanded the green there, and they've taken that big, the severity of the front slope on the right-hand side, they've taken a little bit of that away, so they can use a right flag position there. And they messed up. What hole? They messed up the 11th green. They made it bigger. And it's, that green was just a wonderful green. I mean, it just was as good as it got.
You better below the hole there.
You better be below the hole. And now they've flattened it out, and they've taken some of the slope away, and they made it larger to the right, a little bit deeper. It seemed like, I don't know why they did that. That was the bad mistake.
Wow. You got anything else, Chase?
Yeah, Tom, I'd like to ask you one more quick little question. We work with a lot of good young aspiring junior golfers, college players, even mini tour players. What's some advice that you have if you could go back and talk to yourself at 16, 17, 18, like just about the journey of the game and what to expect and how to handle emotions, and what would some of your advice be?
Well, the most important thing, do you know whether you really want it or not? And what's that mean to you? Do you really want to be the best? Or do you just want to go out and play? You just want to, play good golf, but do you really want to be the best? And that wanting to be the best makes you a better player. And what it does, it makes you practice harder than anybody else. It makes you, one of the things that gets me is that not so much on the senior tour, but even on the regular tour when I was still playing it, the number of players who did not practice after their round was over. Because practicing, going to the practice tee right after your round is over, you have your mistakes fresh in your mind, and you practice those to solve the riddle, so to speak, on those mistakes, the swings that you made, and you go to the practice tee and you work it so you do it right. So the next time you face that situation, you have the confidence that you will do it right. And I always had the desire to be the best I could be. The best golfer I could be, like Byron said, the best man, best husband, and the best golfer he could be. Everything else would fall in line. The bottom line is everything else would fall in line. If you aspire to be the best that you can be and do the necessary things, you have to figure out what the necessary things are to be the best. You can rely on TrackMan, you can rely on this, but no. The flight of the ball never lies. If you're out there hitting golf balls without a TrackMan, whether you hit a good shot or bad shot. or a marginal shot. You know by the flight of the ball if you're any good. And you better practice until you get that flight of the ball the way you want it to be. And you better continually try to do that. I can equate it back to horses, Hal. You can have the greatest horse in the world, and you go into that show pen and you make a mistake in that horse remembers that mistake. So that the next time you go in there, if you don't train that horse not to make that mistake in the training, that horse is he's going to take the easy way out and make that mistake again. And the same thing applies to golf. You have to continue to try to improve yourself. I guess the main thing is to not be satisfied unless you get to that, that one point where it said, I played on my tour. There were 5 tournaments in my career that I knew I was going to win, teeing it up on Thursday. I won 4 out of the 5 of them. And the rest of the time, it was a horse race. I'm teeing it up on Thursday to try to end on Sunday with the lowest score. And and that's the nature of the game. And my focus in the game really started my junior year in college, where I decided that I was going to turn professional, and I'd better I better work as hard as I could to be the best I could be. That's all I want to do, is see if I could be the best. What was that going to look like? The best that Tom Watson could be. And it took a while, but I got to the point where I could play this game, and I could play it pretty well. And did I win every tournament? No. Did I win tournaments that I shouldn't have won? Yes. Did I win the tournament I wanted to win most? I finally did. I won the US Open. And I told her the story about how bad it was going into the tournament and how it turned around with just one swing thought. I've got it.
So I started by telling you I thought you were one of the best of all time, all the way to your late age. You just convinced me. I was convinced beforehand. I think you ended up being the best that Tom Watson could be.
Well, I think so too. I mean, although there was always room for improvement. There really was.
Yeah. Well, I think I should have done this or that, but
there's always room for improvement, and that's why we love this game, Hal. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've seen you play, the best golf, of anybody I've almost ever seen play, and there are other times you couldn't.
Right.
And I understand. And, we strive to be the best we can be and hit the timing right, where we have a tournament that we really want to, any tournament we want to win, but, to hit the ground running, and we have the opportunity to win the tournaments we want to win. And that, I'm grateful. I'm very grateful to have been able to play a game for a living, and not ever have to think too many times that, God, this is work. This is, at times it was work, and times I hated the game, but my good friend and teacher Byron, and also Stan, said, it'll turn around. If you keep working at it, it'll turn around. And they were right. Just at times it doesn't flow, and you're doing the wrong things, and you have to. It doesn't mean that it is total frustration doesn't set in, but it does mean that you have to understand that frustration will lead to something good if you pursue. You got to keep putting one foot ahead of the other. You can't just stop.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out to be on Be the Right Club today, Tom. Both Chase and I admire you a lot. And, you know, when we posted on Twitter that you were going to be on, there's a lot of people out there that admire Tom Watson. So they'll all be looking forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Well, thanks, Hal. And Chase, I got your name right this time. I appreciate the time to be able to talk about the game we love.
Tom, thank you so much. You're that last little bit gave me goosebumps. Like so much good information, so many good nuggets that our listeners are going to love. Thank you so much for coming on.
You bet. You take care.
See you, Tom.
Be the right club today. Yes!